Joyce, it's with tears in my eyes that I write to you this letter requesting that you and your fans help me take a decision. Dave and I have dated for about 3 years now, and we plan to get married very soon. We are both ready for marriage, and I seek to confirm this. I found out that I was pregnant a few weeks ago. Well, the greatest thing threatening our happiness now is the result of our genotype test. The knowledge that we both have the same genotype of AS was really shattering and has really destroyed my happiness. I admit that we've both been careless because we should have checked our genotype status before, and perhaps if not for our church, which insisted that we go for such a test, we may not have known till after we were married. Now, Joyce, I need your advice and that of your fans. What do you think? Is it possible for us not to get an SS child? Should we take the risk? Are there any remedies? How about my pregnancy? Please help us. We are so in love and can't live without each other. I'm really desperate for advice. Please don't ignore my letter. Help a desperate soul. I am Tina, your very sad fan.
Now, let's hear from Reverend David Emerele, please.
Well, I would like to continue from where Father stopped. He has made it clear. And this is one of the consequences of having sex before marriage. Somebody out there said, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? First of all, Tina and your friend, you are sinning against God. Cure ED. Because you said you are not yet married. So you have to bear it in mind that you are not yet married. Despite the fact that you sin against God and became pregnant. What you need to do is you have to wait until you deliver. You have to wait and pray and ask God for forgiveness, and also ask God for forgiveness on behalf of the unborn baby, so that the unborn baby will not be an SS. And I also want to state categorically clear here that because of the fact that you are not yet married and you have had the knowledge of your genotype, that this person is AS and this person is AS, and you know the consequences of it, please don't tempt God. Don't tempt God, because if you go ahead with a relationship, you are now tempting God. Maybe if an SS comes out of it, you start praying and start running helter-skelter from one church to another, asking of God to pray. That one, God will just ignore you, because first of all, you have a privilege of what is going to happen. The Bible says at the days of ignorance, God overlooks, but this time around, you know it. So it is something that you saw death and you deliberately entered there. So you will not blame God and you will not blame anybody. I also want to say here that the Bible says, do to others what you like others to do for you. Assuming you are the person that is an SS, and then when you grow up and start having all these sicknesses, you are being carried about here and there, and then all of a sudden, or somebody told you that your mother and your father are so much in love that they love each other, and then they knew that they are AS and AS, and they went ahead and begat you, and then you become a product of SS. What will you do? Will you not carry them and shoot them? So what I want to state is that this kind of thing that is called love, I have always stated it. Please, ladies, you are always carried away by the name love. I love you. You know, let me tell you, what deceive is by hearing. If you want to deceive a lady, speak to her. If you want to deceive a man, show him something. So,
Thank you so much. Peter, I know you had this kind of experience. You had a sibling who was an SS. So what advice do you have for these people, considering the fact that you've experienced this? And tell us, did you ever witness your brother or sister have a crisis? Talk to us.
Well, I will start by saying, number one, love is not blind. You should know what you are doing for. You should know what you want. Then, I lost my twin brother to the age of 29. who was an SS. My dad, my mom, until about 10, age 10. He has been sick, we rushed him to the hospital. Now, let me start by saying this is a problem I grew up with, and I was part of it. It's not a good thing. Please, don't like I said, don't be deceived, and don't see it as if love is blind. Because at the end of the day, you discover that the man you said you love, when you find yourself in this problem and in these difficulties, you will hate him the more. Now, coupled with my brother's sickness, I also have polio. I mean, AS plus polio. You know, it's a great problem. Now, because of that, my
SS plus polio.
Yes, SS plus polio. Now, with that, my mother has to leave her job, her teaching job, because of him. Now, my dad has to leave his job in Lagos and relocate to Ibadan because of him. And I could remember very well that before end of the month, we take him to hospital more than 5 times.
In a month?
In a month. It's as bad as that. We started primary schools together, and along the line, we not continue. After some time, we was able to overcome this, and we continue. And along the line, with the polio thing, that has to affect his left hand and his right leg. So at the end of the day, we have to take him back to the hospital for physiotherapies and a lot of things. I want to submit to you today that once you know you are AA, please don't go for another. Sorry, once you know you are AS, please don't go for another AS. Because see, you don't need to try God. Now you know the knowledge of what you know should be able to put you through in life. I mean, for my parents at their time, they don't know. I mean, they were thinking maybe it is the neighbor's problem or Ouijas or whatever. I could remember I took my brother the first time Reverend Idausa came to Ibadan for his Baba. I took my brother to the Baba side, just believing God, all will be well, it will change. I mean, and we look alike. That's another thing.
Identical?
Yes, my twin brother, we look alike, and you can easily find it difficult to know this which is Taiwo or this is Kaide. And still have this problem. Unfortunately, it was only SS in our family. I was AS, then my other siblings, they are AA. So, and I mean, how will you feel that your twin brother, you are in school, and your twin brother is at home, or tomorrow is in the hospital on admissions? Personally, I even find it difficult to be able to concentrate until one day somebody talking to me, look, life goes on, you have to face your life. So I want to say to you, now, please, it's not a good thing, now that you know. And for this lady,
you shouldn't go ahead.
We advise her, for the two of them, herself and the man, they need to think and talk very, very well. They should know what they are going for. Now, because if you say it's in love, like I said, love, don't see that your love is not blind, know what you are going for. I will advise her, it's a matter of choice now. Now the baby is involved. Now that the baby is involved, it's a matter of choice. Are they going to continue? And if they are going to continue, are they ready to put ends to childbearing? That's one. Then two, if they are not going to, if they are going to separate, is the man ready to bear the pain with her? Because it's not a thing that one person should handle. I mean, if my parents try on their own way and I grow up to know that and have to join them, and my other brothers have to join them, it's not a good thing.
So, in the final analysis, you don't want them to go ahead here?
Personally, I would want them to go ahead,
okay.
But they should know what they are really going for.
All right. I would like you to share, what's a crisis like? You weakness?
Yes, most of the time it's pain.
How does it happen?
During any season, most of the time. Or during cold, or whenever he exposes himself to cold weather, before you know it's down, complain of headache, bones pain, marrow pains, joint pains, and everything. And before you know, we pack him, bump him into the car, then we are there at the hospital. Okay. And we'll be there for 3 days, 4 days, or 5 days before we discharge.
And he died as a result of that?
Yeah, I think he died as a result of that because he just had little malaria. I mean, we know that his sickness is malaria. He just had malaria and then gave him the medication. I said, I'm okay, I'm fine. And that was all. The following day, he couldn't wake up.
Peter, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Dr. Ikechi, finally, let's get back to you. Doctor, what's your advice?
My advice is they shouldn't go ahead with the marriage. It's a very excruciating experience to happen to be in the hospital when they bring this person. Keep coming, like my brother said, multiple crises from one transfusion or the other, one infection or the other. And besides, the whole thing that is ruling the world now, people are moving into utilitarian philosophy. That's why we have democracy. Doing the maximum number of good to the maximum number of people. When you love somebody, that is between you and what about the unhappiness you bring to the number of people that we. So where your right and want to love because you have the right to do so. Where your right ends is where another man's. The baby has the fundamental human right to have a good health. So you don't consider that because you think your right is wrong. You are going to multiply souls to the number of people, and that is contrary to the utilitarian philosophy. Then again, we have eugenics ruling the world now, trying to increase the good qualities of heritability of individuals. So when you know that you are AS and somebody is AS and you're married, you are multiplying carriers. So you're not helping to improve the heritability. So that is what I have.
Yeah, Doctor, in your profession, assuming you encounter such a case, can you ever give an abortion as an option?
No, abortion wouldn't be. I'm pro-life. Abortion wouldn't be there. The chairman of the pro-life. Okay, you would say so. Abortion wouldn't be because you are doing against the. To God. God is the sole owner of life. And the life you want to take belongs to God. And we alone can take it. So,
thank you. So,
and apart from the medical complications.
Apart from that, are there conditions?
No, I mean the medical complications of abortion.
Okay, good. All right, thank you so much, Doctor. What if the baby is sick? Are you still advising not to go ahead?
If they have the baby and the baby is a sickle, they shouldn't go ahead. But rather, what they do, they need to sit down and know how to take care of the baby. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes. I want to ask someone.
Okay.
I want to ask someone that thing. Follow up to what Dr. Ohale said. You know, don't become somebody that will contribute an evil or something bad to another person. Just like what he said, where your right stops, where another person stops. So, God will not be happy with you if you become somebody that will contribute to another person's faith or something like that. God will not be happy with you at all. So the best thing to do is to avoid it.
Thank you.
The best thing to do is to avoid it. And if the person is a sickler, and then just like he said, both of you have to put heads together and then know how to take care. Whether it's a sickler self or not. For me, I know that first of all you are not yet married. So don't think about that. You are not married because I'm not.
Okay. Thank you so much. There are questions for you. I don't know if you want to add something or should they go ahead with their questions? Okay, you have questions for them, right? All right.
Really, I thank God that the professionals are made up of both the clergy, the medical practitioners, and the public. I want to know, sir, now that we have heard from you people that it shouldn't be encouraged for them to go ahead, and there are people, either by commission or omission, have entangled themselves into the act, or out of love, whether they married in the right way or the other, but they are ignorant of their genotype status, and they happen to produce children who are up to the age of 25, 20 years and 18. And if you look at the children, as a number of them in the society, they are good looking, healthy, and beautiful. And the students have been coming. what is their condition? What advice can we give to them? What should how should they be treated? Should they be allowed to just be like that without any person marrying them, without them giving their way to the person, or what? What do we do?
Are you talking about seculars now?
Yeah, seculars.
Okay.
Seculars.
Okay, who are lucky enough to be up to 20?
Yeah,
maybe?
they are
Okay.
lucky.
All
They
right.
are good looking.
That's a tough one. So.
When you have a sick person, that boils down to the management of sick. See, the single person, you need to know the do's and don'ts. For instance, when they come, we usually counsel them, tell them that they need to avoid infections, or when they have, they should present to hospital in time, and then put them under lifelong treatment with drugs like folic acid, for instance. Then put them on antibiotics like penicillin for life.
For life?
Yeah, for life. Yeah, because they are prone to pneumococcal infections. So, what has happened to the spleen? Because at that time, the spleen has auto-amputated itself, where antibodies are produced. Then we should also try to tell them that they need immunization against things like pneumococcal infections. Then, where their vaccine is available, what they have in the US, hemophilic is another bacterium. Then, of course, hepatitis B, because they are going to have multiple blood transfusions. So along the line, they can come in contact with the hepatitis B virus. So give them vaccine for hepatitis B. Then try to tell them that they should avoid conditions of low oxygen tension, like crowded area or flying. They should avoid taking aircrafts, because under that low oxygen tension, they have automatically going to have crisis. Then, of course, when a sickler is coming to hospital and is going to be operated, you really have to alert the anesthetist, so they will have oxygen, make sure it's well hydrated, give a lot of fluids to the patient, and make sure they don't try things like tourniquet, where that will occlude because of stasis. So these are the little things and of course, let them live normal and eat good diet.
I think he was actually talking about relationships now. I mean, what about their love life? Should they be neglected? Should they be avoided? Does it mean they don't have any right to be loved and to love? Yes, I think that's what you. That's good. So maybe the ministers can come in here. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, in answer to your question, first of all, let anybody that is coming to ask a hand in marriage for you, let him know who you are or your genotype. Tell the person that you are SS. That if the person says he loves you, he or she loves you, and wants to go ahead, then you can go ahead. First of all, you are giving him a personal information. Then, secondly, if nobody is coming, please serve God and be faithful and marry God. I'd like to make a point here.
Please.
It's not everybody that will marry. After all, we have the reverend fathers, they are not yet married, they are not killing themselves. Let me tell you, this place, this world is a temporary place to live in. And there is no marriage in heaven.
Young man, I think your question is about who is going to love them and who is not going to love them. Must they be loved or not? First of all, they are products of love too. They came as a result of love. So there shouldn't be any idea of discrimination of any degree at all. They should be loved and appreciated. And they deserve to be even shown greater love than the stronger parties of the society. So all I'm talking about is that if you are loving them, love them for love's sake. And that is what love is meant for. Sacrificing for the other. If you are loving the young guy, a boy, he is SS, and you're a young girl, and you love him so much, good, wonderful, and beautiful. But let the love you have for him or her be something that will help him also sustain and be a good person. And that when he remembers you, he is happy. Says, I have somebody by my side. I can always call on you and rely on you in times of difficulty. And he's asked or she's asked, who do I call? Say, call me Justin, call me Peter, call me Agatha. And you are there. That's what love is all about. Love is all about having sex and putting to bed.
know your SS, you avoid SS and AS. If you marry an AA person, he's going to dilute what the constitution. So at the worst, you get AS carriers.
Thank you very much.
Yes. My question is, we have been reading in the Bible that God did this, God did that. God delivered Daniel from lion's den. God delivered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fire. And in this case, we are talking of Tina's case now. So, what I want to ask our reverend gentlemen in the studio here now is, has God stopped his miracle?
Thank you, young man. I think I've been expecting that question. But the important thing is not to cite about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the 3rd chapter of the book of Prophet Daniel. And Daniel being in the lion's den. If those citations will be proper to this situation, you will find out that God also instructed Daniel and he followed divine instructions. He never fed from the king's table. And because he was obedient and followed God or his instructions, and God also paid up. So this other guy, Tina, was playing out of the track. And the consequences are there. So come into the mainstream of your difficulty or the question you are trying to bring up, whether God cannot help. God can still help. You see, there are chances. There is a possibility of AA. There is a possibility of AS. We are talking about that 25% of SS that would constitute a whole life mission. Not just for Tina or his friend, but all your brothers and sisters around you will feel the whole thing. In Tina's situation, they can still go ahead and marry. But the important thing is that they need to be very, very careful. Because as I told you, they did not begin on the platform of marriage. Is that very clear?
Yes.
They were not thinking about marriage. Let us also suppose that marriage evolved on the way. Now, this is the test case. Are they really in love? If they are really in love, this question will come up. Because you wouldn't need our suggestion. Of course, you would have been highly soaked in love. The question will come up. But because she's seen caveats here and there, command punctuations are there, she's now moving forward and backward. She is not really in love, if I'm asked to answer. Because if she had been really soaked in love, this question will come up. I wouldn't tell her whom to marry. And if she said that she is really in love, from where would she get the answer? That is why you need to be very careful. If you are talking about marriage, begin on the foothold of marriage and listen carefully. Follow the instructions. This is how you are going to go about it, and you wouldn't land into error. But they began on frivolities, thinking that fornication and pregnancy will equal marriage. That is not true. Now the test case is there. Tina should find out whether the young man is interested. The weight of their love must balance. It's not a case of I love you and therefore you open the sea.
I want to also add something to what Father has said. It's a very interesting question. He asked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel. First of all, if you have read the Bible very well, you are going to find out that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were faithful to God. They died for God. The king said, if you don't bow to this image, we are putting you into fire. That means they saw death. They said, king, instead of us bowing to your image, the dead let us down. And they said, dead, here we come. and they were going because God created death. God first of all entered into that place and saved them. What we are talking about is that Tina is a kind of dying selfishly for herself and her bedmates. I will call it bedmates. They are just doing best. They're not married yet. So they are not yet married. As far as we are concerned, they are not yet married. So God has nothing to play here. But I also want to state that her level of faithfulness to God will depend on God's mercy. The God's mercy will come in the time that at the time she said, okay, Father, I am sorry, I've sinned against you, I will no longer continue. I am for you, whatever you say, I will take. And then she quits the relationship and maybe a baby is born, or some other person that is a secular. The mercy of God will come in the time that, just like what Dr. Hale said, somebody who is an AA can come and still marry you. Yes. And then that is where God will find mercy come, and you can still live your life and get married, so that you will not produce anybody that is an SS.
Sure. Thank you.
I want to use the opportunity of this question to really look at this issue of prayer and miracles and all that. I think a lot of people tend to even misunderstand God. They tend to start trying God. Daniel and Meshach and Abednego, they really put themselves in the condition where they find themselves. Daniel did not put himself in the lion's den. He was put there by a higher authority, a higher human authority, and then God intervened. But in this particular situation, what a lot of people tend to take God for is like, you are going on the journey. God shows you a pit that you are likely to fall in, and then God gives an alternative way of going around that pit of falling. Instead of avoiding going that safe way, you will allow yourself to fall into that pit and now tell God, you say you're a miracle worker, one of the some of people tend to be saying when they are praying or asking for a miracle. The knowledge, the scientific knowledge about find out what this genotype is all about, and it's given to mankind from God. And God is now using this knowledge to advise his children so you don't get into all these kind of miseries in your marriage. And you already know your genotype, you now want to walk in and now begin to quote the Bible. When you don't quote the Bible wrongly, so at least young people should actually know what they're talking about when they're saying all this love, and all this prayer and all that. If they are foolish, God is not a God of foolishness.
You want a question?
I want to pose this question to Dr. Hale. Dr. Please, I've not read in the annals of anybody who was a secular and died later. Could you please tell us when it's counted? Because I remember someone asked the question, if, I think Sister Joyce asked the question, if it's just peculiar to we Africans, or does it occur over there? I would like you to tell us, take us back whenever you started. Did it start before Christ, Anno Domini, or after Christ? That's the first question. The second question is, now, some years back, we heard that there's some medical experts were trying everything possible so as to invent a drug that would sustain some of them, not keep them for a period of time in life, no, but make them whole. I want to know if that effort has been dashed or smashed against the wall, or is the medical team continuing in that pursuit? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before then, he first asked when the sickle cell disease started. Like any other disease, as old as mankind. You can see, if you take us back to our traditional African setting, we used to call Obanje. So those people who were dying in a mysterious way like that, it has been traced that they had the sickle cell. So when you see they reach a certain age, usually it doesn't begin till around six months. Because that is 6 months, that's when they start having their crisis. Because they are protected from birth to around 6 months. Because of what they have inherited, the so-called fetal hemoglobin F is protective, and that is what the baby has from the uterus, from the womb. And as soon as the baby is growing, the hemoglobin F gene that is protective keeps dropping down into the adult hemoglobin. Because hemoglobin F, they don't have the beta subunit we mentioned. So they have the gamma, and gamma doesn't have any, this doesn't occur in the gamma. So I think that disease is as old as mankind. But what we know is that it's a thing, it's a disease of the Africans, occurring highest, 20 to 25%. Then we have it in the American Negro because of our people. So because this thing has been modified by what is known as selective activity, because they say that those people who have AS genotype, it is protective against malaria attack. And along the line, they multiply and the prevalence increases to counter, and the environment also has a way of playing, reducing the attack. So the American environment is better than our own setting. So that is protected. That's why they don't have the same statistics like we have. Then, like I said, Indian and the people who are in the Mediterranean littoral, around Saudi Arabia, people Italy, Spain, they have this kind of abnormality. Then, coming to your second question about the medical world started something, and along the line, it seems to have failed. Yes, in the medical world has tried a lot of their hand and a lot of things to help sicklers. Like I mentioned, there are certain drugs that are being invented today as to reduce the rate of sickling. Those drugs are there in the market, but the efficacy is not 100%. Then, of course, there is the gene therapy. People are now cloning certain required gene or subunits they want. And when they do this, they use something like a vector, could be a virus. Use it to transmit this required cloned gene you want. You don't want the abnormal beta subunit. You clone the one you require and put it in a virus as a vector. This virus will now go into the genome of the individual and integrate with that individual. Then by so doing, bringing a kind of change in that disease. It's been tried out, gene therapy. Then, of course, where we are now in the medical world is the so-called HLA compatibility. You get the siblings of that individual who is sick. Then try to do a kind of HLA typing in medicine. When they are compatible, you can use it to do a bone marrow transplantation and put the bone marrow, so it will keep multiplying, bringing the required right complements of the beta genes. So these are worked, and it's worked out in a lot of places, but it's very expensive. They've tried that in America and some of the European countries. Yeah, and very soon I think we will catch up with that.
Thank you so much.
My question is, what are the educational implications for those class in secondary school or in higher institution?
The educational
implication.
Okay. How does it affect their education?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's a very simple one. Doctor?
It's quite obvious when somebody is ill. So sickness time will increase, and school absenteeism will increase. When you are ill, you are in the hospital. From one, you will lose your school, you lose your education, you won't have time. So automatically, it will affect it.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
Let me add one or two things. Like my own twin brother, by the time I was promoted to primary 5, he was still struggling in primary 3. So there's no way it's not going to affect the education. That's his principle. I mean, it's something that is going to happen. Nobody can walk around it. Once you are sick, you are not in school, and school season will not stop because of you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I want to ask, is it possible for parents with maybe AA and AS, is it possible for them to give birth to a child with SS? It happens, as in, it happens. Maybe, I think it happens. So this is maybe they will give birth and find out that their children are
She wants to know. She said, is it possible for AAAS, an AA couple to produce an SS baby? And she said she has seen.
I've heard of a story on news. You have to sort it out. How medically true is this? There are 3 doctors here. Is it possible, doctor? Especially if we are so sure, both of them, this one is AA, this one is AX. Is it possible, doctors, please?
It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible. You have to understand it. You have to explain.
You have to explain.
Yes.
Which means something happened. When
Something could have gone wrong. Or you don't rule out mutation. Because mutation could happen somewhere. So it's not 100%, but it's really about or the woman
we have cheated.
Yeah.
Or the man. Alright, thank you so much.
Please, I must say that it's a wonderful knowledge we've acquired today, and we are really sharing with our viewers today. Please, my question is this: it's not that question. I want to tell the panel to help us, because it's obvious that a lot of people out there are really ignorant of all that we have been saying today. And there is this issue of some churches, because I know that some churches like the Catholic Church and some other churches have almost made it a rule that before you go for marriage, you have to go for genotype test, and then you have to know your genotype status. But there are some other churches that they say it doesn't matter. I have a friend who told me the other day that there is nothing God cannot do. We have already treated all these things there. What I'm trying to say is that what do we now tell this? What do we say to these people, especially these churches, that will always, because there is something one of the panel members said here that really touched me. He said, it's not all about your what you feel. We are talking about reproducing sorrow. You understand? So what are we to tell these people? As in, how do we help them? And then how do we reach out? How do we create adequate awareness? As in, maybe to people who are not aware, who do not know about this genotype issue, as in the consequences before they go into marriage. So I want the panel members to throw more light to this. Thank you. Thank you, young man. I think your contribution is proper, and I think the answer is also part of what we are doing. This is an enlightenment campaign also. True or false? True. So as you are now enlightened, you enlighten others. As we are here also, either contributing or debating, people are also watching us. And that is why it is good for you to be properly educated. If you acquire proper knowledge, you are more enlightened, or even you listen and get suggestions from people, you avoid a few mistakes that will cause a lot of difficulties. And I hope that as we develop as persons and as a community also, as the nation also improves in its academics too, and education, I think we are going to rise above this present situation. It was not this way 20 years ago, and it will not remain this way 20 years' time.
To add to what Father has said, my own go like this as an advice. Please, before you agree to marry anybody, both of you, please, should go for tests. Not only genotype, you should know your genotype, you should also know your HIV status. Because we are in a generation that is no longer afraid of mommy or daddies or elderly people. They just do anything that they like in the name of love. Then secondly, I also want to state here that please, you must court. You must court. Anybody that tells you wants to marry you, please have a process of courtship. It is during this courtship, during the time of courtship is not the time of bedment, you know. So during the time of courtship is for you to ask questions. Ask questions from your spouse, who the person is, where does he come from? His mother, his father, his relations, and so on and so forth. Try to know the things that pleases him and the things that displeases him. Try also to know his or her temperament. is very, very important, because a lot of people, you see a lot of marriages that are broken today because of they didn't really cut. They will say, I love you, I love you, I want to tell you. And when problems begin to come, the Lord will sour. I'm looking at most of you that say, love in the Tokyo. I want to tell you, by the time one problem comes, you will see that they are so devastated about that thing that you have called love. And when love breaks down, you will see acute hatred. You so much hate the person that you feel regret the person. So to avoid that, please, you must cut. And I also want to state here that the Bible supports if you want to break courtship rather than breaking marriage. Immediately you are married, no church will want to be a party to separate. So during the time of courtship, if you find out there is something wrong somewhere, please, you can break. It is allowed. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think the priest must continue to say the things that will help all of us. You know, in courtship, you must have an idea of whatever is capable of stopping the marriage. And that's why you expected to have what we call mental marriage fire. As young people growing up, young boy, young girl, there should be a mental marriage fire. The kind of man you want, even with his kind of sickness and attitude. So that when you log in, you find out whether he has it or she has it.
When you log out,
That is why. Yes, you must find out. That is what courtship is all about. That's why at marriage you are told to declare. And you say, I, Justin, declare that I know not of any lawful impediment why I, Justin, will not be in marriage with you. So this and so. Then declare, because the seed will eventually nullify the wedding. If the person is hiding something very dangerous, so I declare solemnly. And I would like you to understand also that marriage and married life is talking about pleasure. It's not about what? Pleasure. Because the young man will capture the doctor talking about eugenics and utility capacities of the family to produce good children. It is not about that. You are 1 plus 1 may not give you 2 in marriage. That is why you say, I, this so and so and so and so, but I now give into marriage with you. I'm going to marry you for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. When there is wealth and when wealth is no longer there, I will love and honor you all the days of my life. So love is not all about producing good children. It is not a case of SS and SS alone. Other factors are there. So there is an aspect of married life that has to do with suffering. The married counterparts will tell you more about that. So it's not all about producing good, sound, medically fit children. Can get your wife very sound, all medical traces sound. Your guy the same thing. After 10 years, there is madness. How are you going to go? Yes, because at hand I had such a case. I've been treating it for the past few days. Somebody just lost his wife. Just that way. From the air, one situation just came up. Blah, 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 blah. The woman just gave up, just like that. You don't know whether it is a case of witches and wizards. This is not a case of temporal madness. What are you going to call it? And the children are dead. So you need also to gear up. That's why the church says you must open your eyes.
Shine your eyes.
Open it properly. Make proper instructions. Listen to who must be listened to. Make proper inquiries. Proper investigations. Banks of marriage. Hear properly. Decide properly. Then call upon God. So that in times of sorrow, God is there to be with you in the fire. And He will bring divine air condition to cool it.
case cited was Daniel chapter 3 from verse 15. It said, "O king, if our God is able to come here and deliver us, he will. But if he doesn't want to come, O king, you still know that we will not bow down to worship your God." Unconditional. So be strong. Get into marriage, but make sure that you do the necessary things that are human and reasonable enough. And God will water the rest for you.
To the young people?
Marriage is also meant to be enjoyed, not to be endured. So whatever you think that will make you to endure your marriage, please try and run away from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Doctor.
Yeah, all over the world there has been a paradigm shift from curative medicine to preventive medicine. So, and self-responsibility for health is what we are now preaching. That you can be the architect of your own. Nobody will give you that. And part of doing that is preventing what will happen in the future. So, on that note, I think it's very proper for you to do your genotype. At least it doesn't cost much to know before you now take a leap into marriage. Thank you very much.
I think on that note, we've come to the end of today's edition of the program. It's been wonderful having you join us today. Don't forget to join us same time next time. I would like to use this opportunity to say a special thank you to Jesme Rentals. Jesme Rentals is here in Owerri. I also would like to thank Coca-Cola Bottling Company Nigeria here in Owerri, the Owerri plant. Thank you so much for your great kindness to us. So, on behalf of everyone here, especially my colleagues who've been behind the camera, other people directing, I am Joyce Onewu. I thank you for being there. I love you all. Bye-bye.